Welcome to the Blitz Growth Podcast. Listen in to learn how founders, entrepreneurs, and creators build and scale their businesses online. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Blitz Growth, where we go into the stories of creators and entrepreneurs. And today we're going to be going a little bit more into the growth of Vyper, which is one of our software products that we created. And we'll go through how we grew that company. It's been around for about 3 going on 4 years now. And so there's been a lot of learnings that we've taken away, a lot of wins, a lot of failures. And we're going to dive into all of those today to point out what the best growth strategies were for us. And hopefully that will help you in the long run. So, a few things we're going to be covering is, what sort of marketing tactics we did, what sort of tactics we did at the launch, what sort of lifetime deal learnings we had, what sort of other strategies worked in growing a SaaS company. So here today with Kevin, my co-founder. So he'll be joining us as well and spreading some insight as well on the development side of things as well as the marketing side of things. So Kevin, how should we lay this out?
I'm just gonna probably ask you a couple questions and think about how you started thinking about the marketing. I think we start with the first phase of things, like the beginning stages. Just from the beginning, when you first started Vyper, what was the first steps to get it out there?
Yeah, so if you already have a product, so I think what we really need to look at here is we started with a MVP, so a very, very early MVP. So if you're starting your own company, you've got to think about where are you in terms of your product development? Are you like super early MVP or are you launching something established? So Vyper was a very early MVP.
What do you mean launching something established?
So Vyper was our first SaaS product ever. And so what we did there was we had a very early on MVP. So it was just working. And in comparison to our second software product called Hyax, which we're launching, which is going to be a lot more established before we launch. Now, the reason I say this is because your launch strategy is going to change depending on if it's like your first ever product or it's a secondary, third, or fourth product that you're launching. So this episode is probably going to focus a little bit more about launching your first SaaS. Because how we started was we had built an MVP. We didn't really have any products. We didn't really have any customers, and our product was pretty young. So it hadn't really been tested that much. Nobody had really used it. And we still had a bunch of stuff that we were still testing and still trying to get right before we were actually going to launch it to the public. And then we got picked up on Product Hunt by someone completely random. We had no idea. And from there, we got our first customers. So I would say our first 20 or 30 customers came from our Product Hunt launch, which we weren't prepared for at all. So we had to scramble everything to get ready pretty much the day of that was hunted. And Product Hunt is very common place for people to launch new products, features, or tools. Whereas back in the day, we launched it, and I think we got, we looked this up a few days ago. We got number 1 of the day with only about 450 upvotes or something.
We had 450, right? Is that what you just said?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And so you add to that if you want.
Yeah. So that was a complete accident, just to add on to that. We didn't have any connections. We just had some guy just randomly hunt us. We were both working part-time, right? And it was just honestly a happy accident. So that wasn't planned at all. And then at the time, the product was so early that there was still a lot of bugs with it. Like we hadn't even set up like the SSL certificate yet. So really that was just a happy accident. I don't know if that's necessarily repeatable for everybody, but I think the key is like Product Hunt or these other sites like that, where you can launch your product, right? And then you can maybe you can get into more of like, how would you plan a launch yourself on Product Hunt?
Yeah, so there's a few platforms. So Product Hunt is definitely probably the most well-known, and you get the biggest push in one day, but we've actually launched features and products on beta list as well, which actually has driven long-term customer generation. Like, even though we launched like many years ago, we will still get like odd traffic and customers come through beta list. Whereas Product Hunt, it tends to get, you know, all of the action on the day of, and then it kind of dies off very quickly. So those are the two main ones I would say you want to look at. And then in terms of organizing your launch, because we did a few other launches of kind of like sub products. So like a new like area of our app that we released, we would actually release on Product Hunt. So we did a few other things in future launches that really helped. So one of them was to prepare your list. So it's much easier to get upvotes and get momentum when you have an audience to then reach out to and say, hey, we're on Product Hunt. Can you go and leave a comment? Can you upvote us, or can you just leave your feedback? You've got to be very careful with how you phrase it now, because Product Hunt is looking for any reason to penalize you. So we have been penalized once or twice for being too direct in asking people to upvote our product. You definitely need to be more organic about it, and also staggering your release. So if you have 100 people, you know, tell 20 and then wait an hour, tell another 20, wait an hour, tell another 20, so that you have a gradual flow of upvotes as opposed to telling all 100 people at once. You know, it's really important to stagger it, because if your launch looks unnatural, like all of a sudden you get hundreds of upvotes all at once, then Product Hunt is most likely going to penalize you on that. But, you know, what's your take on that, Kevin?
Well, I mean, I think Product Hunt, so I think with Product Hunt, right, there's a lot of different algorithms at play, and we don't really know the exact way they measure all this stuff. So this is kind of like more of a guess. But we've had issues where if you get a lot of upvotes at once, like with a newsletter blast, like some of those upvotes don't necessarily get counted. But the other thing, the factor I think matters for that is when you have people that are just like kind of new upvoters, like new people, that seems more strange to their algorithm than if you had a bunch of established voters upvote your product. So you kind of have to try to create a network of established upvoters to upvote your product. And those get higher weight over someone who's, you know, just starting out with a Product Hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we started there. The other thing that how we made our first revenue from that is, so we got featured on Product Hunt, and then we were getting a bunch of traffic, and then we put together a lifetime deal. So I think it was $99 lifetime deal at the very start. And that's how we got our first, 20 or 30 users to Vyper. And we offered, the lifetime deal on that for anybody who sort of came through to the website. We added a banner that was just asking them like if they'd be interested in a lifetime deal, and they became our, core first customers. And then that was how we started collecting all of our user feedback. We got information from how they were using the tool. We got information on what people liked and didn't like. And it definitely helped us improve the product, because having a good product is also important when you start getting monthly paying users, because I think lifetime users are a little bit more flexible because they're not paying monthly. So if you're like, okay, that feature is rolling out in X amount of weeks, they're happy to wait, or they're still happy to use your tool at a later date rather than just bounce and cancel, because they've invested the upfront amount and hoping that your product is going to improve over time, so that their initial lifetime deal, their $99, is more valuable, let's say six months later, because you've built out a better product. What would you say about that?
About lifetime deals in particular, or
just about how we went about getting tying in the lifetime deal with our Product Hunt launch, and what the benefit of that was.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered most of it, but it was just, it's very crucial to get that early feedback as a developer, because you're basically, for me, I was coding kind of by myself for like 6 months until Jack came on board. So it was really only seen by me, him, and like a couple of my friends at the time. So getting that early feedback is really crucial, and it's even better when you can just get a little bit of money too, because that kind of validates that you actually have something that people want. Because you can get all the free feedback you want, but that doesn't necessarily mean that someone gets value out of your product if they're not paying you. You know what I mean? So even having a little bit of money being sold upfront just gives you a little bit extra validation that your product is useful.
Yeah. So that was actually our main strategy when we launched Vyper. It wasn't even really a strategy, but that's how we got our first customers, we got our first traffic, and we got our first revenue. And then from there, we started really looking at, we started doing like marketing automation via email. So we set up email drips, we set up, product demos and videos and stuff like that. Around that time, we sort of started publishing, content here and there. And we actually used our own product to launch a giveaway, like a software giveaway. So, it wasn't that common to give away a big suite of lifetime access to a bunch of SaaS apps. And we managed to get some pretty good apps in there, actually. So that was how we kind of first grew our email list, actually. We used a B2B giveaway, and I think that generated it was like 7,500 emails, actually. And that's how we really kickstarted our email list. And do you want to go into how you got that going? Because that's a pretty important process, I think. That giveaway. So a lot of what we've learned over the last few years is that the relationship is really important in B2B marketing, because the relationships open up doors, it opens up opportunities, and it's really important to have a healthy relationship. So it's like a give and a take relationship. So in this case, when we were setting up the giveaway, we were doing a lot of outreach to a bunch of other founders, mostly marketing tools, because that's kind of the person that we were trying to attract, someone who's using B2B marketing tools. And so I reached out to a bunch of those with a pitch email, essentially saying like, hey, I'll do all the work and I'll expose your brand to thousands of new business owners who are interested in products similar to yours. We've got these guys on board. Do you want to contribute a 12-month or a lifetime account? And we will also push an offer to everybody who signs up for this giveaway. And we'll be running ads, and we'll be doing email marketing to all these people. And we'll add what we call the bonus action, which is a little bit of incentive to get participants of our giveaway to go and like your product on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, whatever it may be. So we kind of provided a lot of value up front for them to make it a no-brainer decision for them to be like, okay, great, I'll just give you a 12-month or a lifetime account, and you're going to get my product in front of 5, 10, 20,000 people.
Yep, that's a good recap. I think maybe to note also that we got pretty good people just at the beginning there on that giveaway. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's a big ask, but it really isn't, because if you just pitch it as, hey, we're going to give you free promotion, all we need is like one account or something. A lot of SaaS companies, especially if they're smaller, they're just willing to do it because they just need promotion.
Yeah, so it's like, who did we have? I just pulled it up, actually. Mm-hmm. So we had something from ClickFunnels. We had Smart Passive Podcast from Pat Flynn. We had Grow Sumo, Meet Edgar, Ninja Outreach, Pipedrive, Mixmatch, and FOMO. Those are all like really good companies. Yeah. We also it's like, yeah, go ahead. Holy Mail, I think, and Teachable, and a time tracking app. So we had a bunch of them, actually. Pipedrive, Teachable, yeah. But some of them. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I was going to say the key to that too was a lot of those people who are in the giveaway gave us at least like a tweet to their audience. Mm-hmm. So it was just, it was like a win-win for us, because we got their product for free, and we got promotion to the contest due to that. Yeah, and it will depend on the partner. So when I say a give and take relationship, it's like some of them were willing to email their list and say, hey, we're taking part in this giveaway, you should sign up. And some of them would be, no, I don't want to share this, but I'll tweet it out and post it on social media. So there's different types of commitment that you're going to get from each person as well. So yeah, that was pretty much how we started our email list. And then from that, we started kind of doing, email marketing and that sort of stuff. We went with Drip. Actually, when we first started out, we were doing broadcasts and setting up email automations based off the tools that people were interested in. Because that leads us to the next point, actually. Vyper hasn't always been giveaways and contests. We did have a period of time where we were looking to try and improve our LTV. So we found that, giveaways and contests, people do a giveaway maybe once a quarter, once a year. It's not a great monthly product. So what we were trying to do is we tried to introduce other tools or apps within Vyper. So we had a content upgrade tool, and we had a spin the wheel pop-up tool. Now, this is really important because I think this is something that we really had to go to a marketing conference called MicroConf to figure out, actually. Because I think we were on the fence for a really long time as whether we should have the multiple apps within one or if we should just focus on giveaways and contests, because we were tossing up between what is a good monthly tool, what do you need month after month, and then what is a tool that we're actually known for selling and people are liking. I know, do you want to add to that as well, Kevin, about I suppose some of the implications or the pros and cons to having multiple apps under one or just having one core app?
Yeah, so our conclusion was just that you should just have one app. Unless this is especially for a company that is smaller like ours was at the time. Having multiple apps is very confusing. And the other thing is, if you do have multiple apps, that's fine, but it's better to actually separate them out into different apps, especially if the usage is very different. We were trying to tie it in because they were all sort of email collection type apps. But at the same time, what ended up happening was the code base was still sort of very siloed out between each different app. And because of that, it was hard to maintain a good code base when you had multiple apps like that. And so the quality kind of suffered with the different apps. So we ended up sunsetting all the apps. And one of the apps we basically combined into the giveaways app, which was the leaderboard.
Yeah, and a few things in terms of marketing. So at the time, we thought it was a really good idea to have more apps in one and become I think it was the email the viral marketing toolkit. I think we were doing at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, in actual fact, it actually makes it really hard to market your product because you don't have a clear value proposition, and it's very hard to craft a homepage or a website that really shows the value of exactly what your product does very quickly. So, this is one thing that I think a lot of B2B companies struggle with is getting across the value of your product simply and quickly. Because it's really hard to do when you have, if in our case, 4 different apps doing different things and explaining all of that above the fold in 2 sentences or an image. So I think once we narrowed it down to just giveaways and contests, it made it really easy to explain what we did very quickly and people would understand that straight away. So that helped in not only marketing messaging in ads, emails, when we were, doing guest posts or speaking events. It also helped with on-site conversion. So, it helped people understand and they weren't surprised when they got into our tool and had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we got the emails, we did the contest. What was next after that?
So once we sort of saw the value of that partnership collaboration from the giveaway, we sort of lent a little bit more into partnership marketing. So there's a few different types of partnership marketing. So we've kind of done all of them. So the first one I would say is partnership marketing in the way of doing joint collaborations. So JVs. So that's maybe doing joint webinars, doing, the one that I'm going to cover in a minute is how we really got involved with Founder Magazine and their Facebook group, and how that generated a lot of, I would say it generated a lot of customers, traffic, and also credibility and authority in the marketing space. And then you have integration partnerships. So for example, Vyper integrates with ActiveCampaign. And what we did was we created a partnership with them so that we would get listed on their site, they would get listed on our site. We would both do like an email blast to say, hey, we now integrate with ActiveCampaign. They would do an email that says, hey, we now integrate with Vyper. And that's kind of like integration marketing, which is very popular amongst apps. And then the third one, what was I going to say, is like lifetime deals and an actual offer that we're doing in collaboration with someone. So I'll go back to the first one that I mentioned, which was the partnership marketing around Facebook groups. So this was a relationship that we built over a really long period of time. So Founder Magazine has a Facebook group. They were from Australia. I'm also from Australia. So I've known Founder Magazine for a long time.
The Australian connection?
It wasn't really, actually, no. It definitely helped, though, I think. We had they're from Melbourne as well, exactly where I'm from. So it was a good connection point to have. But yeah, so what happened there was, we saw Founder Magazine, and I started really engaging with their Facebook group. Like, I was trying to answer everything. I was trying to be super helpful in that group. I was providing a lot of value, and I eventually got talking to their admin, the admin of that group. And so at this point, he was obviously aware of who I was because he's seeing all these answers and he's seeing me engage with the group and add value. And so he was open to a conversation with me. And so we just started chatting, just, nothing too salesy. And we were just talking about marketing and that sort of thing. And then I started going into, what Vyper was and that sort of stuff. And then we did a Facebook Live in their Facebook group, kind of explaining how giveaways work and how companies can use giveaways. And I pitched the idea to help Founder Magazine run a giveaway. And so what we did there was we provided a lot of value because it was very white glove experience. We kind of like held their hand throughout the whole thing. We helped them build it. We told them exactly what to do, the emails to send, the design to use, the different types of features that they should utilize. So it was very handheld.
Okay. What's your process for partnership marketing?
Yeah, so partnership marketing was really important for Vyper. After we did the giveaway, we realized that if we didn't have our own audience, it's a good idea to not like steal someone else's, but, leverage it and, provide value to it in exchange for introducing yourself, your brand and product into their audience. Now, one of the biggest partnerships we had is with Founder Magazine. So Founder Magazine's from Australia, and I was from Australia, and we connected there, but I noticed that they had a really good Facebook group. It was really engaged. They had multiple posts a day. They were the exact target market. They were focused on e-commerce. They were all looking for ways to grow their e-commerce stores, and we'd at that point identified that e-commerce people were a really good fit, product market fit for our product. And so what I started doing was I was really adding a lot of value to their group. So I was adding in a lot of information, mostly around Facebook ads, because that was my background. So I was giving a lot of advice on what to do with Facebook ads. I was adding in a lot of information to help people with their stores, their setups, their pixel tracking, features in Shopify, how they should set up their ads, audiences, that sort of stuff. So one main point here to think about is don't necessarily just talk about the thing that you're trying to sell. This is really important because nobody wants you to come in and straight away just start talking about how good giveaways are. Because straight away they're like, okay, this guy's trying to sell something. You've got to provide value that isn't necessarily tied to your product, because otherwise you come across too salesy. So I was providing a lot of value in multiple verticals, especially in the areas of expertise that I had. And then after a while, I started talking to the admin of the group. And so we got chatting, and then we talked about doing a Facebook Live session. So we did a Facebook Live in their Facebook group. And so that introduced me, and that people started tagging me in that group, asking me questions, and using me as a resource. And then after a while, we kind of pitched to Founder Magazine that we would help them run a giveaway. And so that's when we started introducing our product. This was after months. And so then we ran a giveaway with them, and it was very white glove. So we held their hands through the whole process. We told them what to do. We helped them create it and design it, what emails to send, everything. And so that resulted in a really good giveaway, and which resulted in, a lot of exposure for us in the marketing world, because they are entrepreneurs magazine, like an entrepreneurial magazine. It's a lot of B2B and a lot of e-commerce. And then also we then wrote a case study that they could publish on their site. Actually, no, we did two things. So they wrote a case study on the campaign, which we helped edit. And then we also wrote a guide on how to collect emails that we wrote and they published on their site. So that was the first kind of way that we kind of got in front of a lot of people, and we utilized partnership marketing to help grow our brand. So it wasn't that we were trying to just take their audience, we were providing a ton of value for them. And in exchange, they were more than happy to use our product, publish things about us on their blog and help us because it needs to be a two-way relationship. So that was a great example of how we partnered up with Founder Magazine.
Yeah. No, that was a great first, that was sort of like, I think, a point where we had sort of broke through in a way, right? Like you would say, like, because I think that partnership kind of set us up for like future things as well. Because that was like sort of, it was not only was it a case study, but it was also just a big brand using our product. So it was just giving us that social proof of like a company that's well known in the space using us. So, and I think that's a huge factor for marketing, is like when you have like your first like big company using your product. And big can be relative too. Like for us, like Founder was fairly big for our niche, right? But they're not like a Fortune 500 company or anything. But yeah.
And that's a good point for, we're just talking about our SaaS product, but I think this goes for, anything that you're doing, whether you're a content creator and you're trying to get your, content out there, or if you're selling an e-commerce product and you're trying to get your product out there. Either way, look at the guys who have all the attention in your niche or in your space and think, how can I add value to that person? How can I help that person? And then in exchange, once you've provided that value, in exchange, you're more than likely to get some sort of value in return. So it doesn't just apply to, our necessarily, like our vertical or our situation. It does apply to, almost anything. Partnership marketing is really important on multiple levels in multiple industries. So I think that's a good takeaway as well, is, find the people who have all the attention in your niche first. That's the first step.
Yeah. And I think also to note, like, this is one of those things where it is difficult to pull off, right? Like everything you said, you made it seem kind of easy, but it definitely isn't an easy process, right? Like it's really, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. And you really have to, you can't really put all your eggs in one basket in this kind of situation. You have to be kind of reaching out to multiple different partners, right? Mm-hmm. Like it sounded like we also, like, I will say, like, we did get a little lucky with this, don't you think? Like it was just, we had the right sort of approach, and we never did any of this stuff before. And then it just ended up, really working out for us. But yeah.
And then we did that with a few other people in the niche as well. So we did this similar sort of thing with Maxwell Finn, and like we tried guys like Ezra Firestone, and that one didn't work out, for example. Right. So there's like people that, there was like failures along with successes with this. So you kind of just have to try it multiple times and have someone who's very, very sort of focused on this. Right. Yeah. And the other thing is, it does take a lot of time, and you can't rush the process, because if you go in trying to promote yourself too much, that's going to negatively impact you. Like, one, they're not going to work with you. And two, you might be harming your credibility or harming your your personal brand, not just your company's brand, for any future things that might happen as well. So you got to be really careful with partnership marketing, not to push it too hard, and not to make it too methodical or like robotic. It's still still a very human process. So that's the hard part about partnership marketing. It's not really predictable, and you can't like engineer it. It needs to be kind of like created over time, and you need to just spend that time really nurturing it. Now, one downside or one negative I see to myself actually, and an area that we definitely need to improve, is maintaining those relationships. So it's really hard as you build these relationships up to maintain them, because you deliver so much value at the beginning, and it's really hard to continue delivering that value because you give all you've got at the start, and it's hard to like keep giving if you've got nothing else to give. So you've got to think about, creative ways to continually be providing value to maintain those relationships too, which I found has been really hard, maintaining stuff like over 6 to 12 months. I usually see it fizzle out after that, just because, things move on, new things become interesting, new things become topical. So if anyone builds an app to maintain those relationships, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it is hard to maintain those relationships. It's a little easier when you have like sort of like the face-to-face time sometimes. Like I know that in-person relationships, when you build them, they're just a little bit better. Do you find that as well? Like when you meet people at like conferences and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can actually lead into the next step. Another strategy that we used with Vyper was that we started doing a lot of conferences and webinars and speaking events. When I say a lot, it's not like nothing crazy, but we started doing them. And that created a few things. So one, it created content, which built authority. So we turned those speaking events into, webinars or online sign-up pages and that sort of stuff. Two, it created credibility because now you are seen as a speaker, which really helps when you're trying to convince someone that you're worth listening to and that your knowledge is credible. Three, it was really good because you would meet a lot of other speakers at these events in person, and that would create opportunities. So that's how we started doing some stuff with Crazy Egg. How we did like a guest post with them. We did a webinar with them. So we did a bunch of stuff. And like if I was just doing cold outreach, there's no way I would have ever been able to kind of get into Crazy Egg. But because we were doing a speaking event and we ran into each other and like hit it off, we then started doing some marketing things together. So
you kind of have an in basically, right? Like the idea is like you use the conference as like an in to make it so that you're not just a cold email. Because it's just with these cold emails, it's so hard. Like, because I get a lot of cold emails and I almost always just ignore them. But I would never probably ignore someone that I met at a conference. I would at least give them the courtesy of being like, this doesn't seem like what we want to do. Or if it's something that we do want to do, then I'll just, do it. Mm. So it's just way better when you have that face-to-face connection. So conferences are, I think, key. And then like, do you want to, like, for example, for us, like we're a product that targets like sort of entrepreneurs, e-commerce, right? Like what conferences would be good for that? Do you know?
So yeah, it's a good idea. You've got to like tailor the conference that you want to go and, get in front of. So for example, we did StartCon, which is very startup entrepreneurial focused. We did e-commerce summit, which was in New York. We did a travel one actually. So we did TravelCon in Austin. We did StartCon with AppSumo. So we did a bunch of different ones.
Well, that was SumoCon, right?
SumoCon, yeah, that was it. Yeah. And so we did a few different ones, and I would say the in-person ones, you met better relationships because we did do a lot of digital ones as well. So it was just kind of like where you do digital summits. They were good because you would still build your credibility. You would still kind of like share your knowledge with people, but you wouldn't create those personal experiences. Like the StartCon one, I remember, it was great. Like they created this whole other experience for speakers where they would, they had like an extra day where the speakers would go and they would have like lunch and dinner together. They went on like a boat trip. they had all of these other like crazy perks for the speakers of their event. And that's where you really got to connect with a bunch of really like awesome entrepreneurs and founders of companies. So that was another.
That's a good, that's an awesome idea. Like what if you could start your own thing, like your own experience? Like that's a really good idea. Like I think that would be a good idea to like get people connected, right? Like, and you could just, do it yourself. Obviously you need some money to do that, but if you already have a business, then I think that's a good idea to do, like a conference or like some kind of small meetup or something.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of these kind of start as smaller meetups or whatever, and they work themselves into conferences. Like, I don't know, unless you've got like a huge amount of funding, I don't know if anybody's kind of like launched a conference just like off the back of nothing. Like, I think a lot of them, like when you think about like MicroConf and a bunch of these conferences, I think they start with like, online, then they go to meetups, and they go to like bigger meetups, and they go to maybe a one-day event, then maybe like a weekend event, then like a week-long event. So they kind of progress over time. But really, I think the most important thing is finding one that is aligned with your target market and the people that you want to connect with. Because I remember we tried to get speaking gigs at, MicroConf, but that just didn't suit the topics that I was talking about. Because I was talking about Facebook ads and growing companies with paid advertising, and that wasn't a good way to grow SaaS companies, or even early stage SaaS companies, which MicroConf kind of focused on. So we weren't able to get a speaking event with those guys, but the e-commerce events, it was much easier because I had that track record of scaling e-commerce companies. I didn't necessarily have that track record of scaling B2B companies with paid ads. So when you do try and speak at these events, you still have to have credibility. So you've got to build that up over time. And you want to talk about a topic that isn't too directly related to your product. Because if I just went there and I just talked about giveaways and pitched my product, I would probably have got a really bad response. And speaking at that event actually might have been a negative thing. So you see at all of these events, people always turn their noses at the large corporate companies that come in and just do like a pitch about their product. They like call them pitch fests or PitchCon, all that sort of thing. So you've still got to provide a lot of value when you do those talks to create a valuable experience for the attendees, because a lot of those attendees turn into customers eventually because you've given them so much value to start with. They like start following you, they start following your brand. And when they do need your service, they're more likely to sign up with you than a competitor. Now, that's a very slow way to grow your customer base. But you don't want to be the company that just goes and talks at conferences and pitches their product.
I think also what's good to note here is that everything that we kind of did was towards building up your sort of authority as well. Like the idea was to, whether it's emails, whether it's partnerships, whether it's the speaking engagements, we wanted to build up your credibility as a marketing person, right? Mm-hmm. And then, since you created this product, now that you're a sort of a leader in the space, then it's much easier for you to now promote your own thing to people.
Yep. Yeah, and it definitely takes time as well. So it's like, it's not going to happen overnight. So this is kind of like a strategy that you will work on over time, and you need to do it in conjunction with things, because we didn't just do this. We were doing other stuff as well as we were going and doing these sorts of things. So, another strategy that we used in that middle stage was we did run a big lifetime deal with a joint venture. So we partnered up with someone who had already done lifetime deals, and we partnered up with them on a percentage basis and did a big product launch that we were giving away a bunch of different lifetime deal options. And so that was another thing that we were doing that I think there were some pros and cons to lifetime deals. But
before you get into that, like, how do you get that opportunity? Like, how did you find this partner, and where can people find partners like that?
Yeah, so I found this partner, I'm pretty sure on Facebook, actually. We just started talking, like there was a few questions he was asking about SEO, and we were going back and forth about SEO and paid advertising. And then he was like, hey, let me introduce you to my business partner. And then they helped run lifetime deals with brands. And then I started talking about Vyper, and then we kind of got onto the topic of possibly doing a lifetime deal with them. And so it's not like we were looking for someone to do a lifetime deal. We kind of got lucky as well here, because I think the lifetime deal in general did generate a lot of revenue for us. And we'll go over the pros and cons in a minute. But
to find these lifetime deal people, I think there's ways to do it, right? Like there's the Facebook groups, there's like a lifetime deal group, there's like AppSumo, right? And then there's various other sites like AppSumo, right? So those are easy. I think all you need to do really is just to reach out and then, see if you're approved. I don't think it's a hard process to find the actual partners.
No, not at all. And there's 3 types, as you mentioned. There's like joint ventures, so partnering up with someone else. There's the Facebook groups, which are big LTD communities, lifetime deal communities. And then there's like the big people like AppSumo and Stack Social, all those guys. We had the most success doing our own lifetime deals. So that was when we put together the deal. We promoted it to our own audiences, and we used that with affiliates. And so that was the most success we had with lifetime deals, because we did some with like Stack Social and that sort of thing, and that didn't work out. Granted, we didn't do any with AppSumo, but we did do, this joint venture one did work out relatively well. But, going into a few of the pros and the cons, so like the pro of the LTD was that we got a lot of users, we got a lot of buzz, like a lot of awareness, and we made a lot of revenue straight up. Now, I think the con was that we had to then support lifetime users. We had to, give up some MRR, monthly recurring revenue, in exchange for those one-time purchases. And then, usually we saw a dip in MRR the following 1 to 2 months after we would do a lifetime deal. So, whether it was people signing up and dropping off, or whether it was people leaving to buy the lifetime deal, or whether it was just like, the hype was dying down after we got all of that exposure. But what would you say were the pros and cons of a lifetime deal?
Well, I think it's important to note that if you're a more established business, you don't necessarily want to do a lifetime deal, because you are going to have some people dropping off of your monthly plans to buy the lifetime deal. Mm-hmm. So if you already have a good amount of people on a monthly plan, and you're giving away that plan as a lifetime deal, you can, earn that revenue, but what's going to happen is a lot of those people are going to end up dropping off from your monthly plans. So I personally think this is a better strategy for a newer business at this point. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say, like, if you're starting out and you have no customers, you're kind of like MVP stage, you want to get some traction in terms of actual users, using your tool and getting some feedback from those people. Like, a lifetime deal is a relatively good place to start. If you're more established, because we did a few of these, and as you get more established, the benefits of a lifetime deal diminish, I think. I think that's the best way of putting it. The other thing is, I think we had technically there are a few issues with it as well. So when we originally did our lifetime deal, we wanted to sort of keep the branding on there, because that would help us promote our product. Because a really good marketing strategy is branding your actual product, so that, when people see your product in use, they can see, okay, Vyper created that. I actually want to create something similar. I'll go check out Vyper. So the branding was kind of important, and we were fine to have it, I think, in the first lifetime deal we did. And then as the industry got more established over the years, lifetime users or lifetime deal hunters, I would suppose, started demanding like more and more from the SaaS companies. So, we found that now people wanted unlimited, they wanted agency, they wanted white label stuff, they wanted no branding. And then at that point, you're just giving up your product with the only benefit being revenue, which kind of puts you in a hard place as a founder. What do you think?
Well, I think, yeah, that is true that people are demanding that, especially like when you're doing ventures with like AppSumo and those other established companies. I think for us, because we did our own lifetime deal, we could set our own parameters. So that's sort of like the advantage if you are doing your own lifetime deal, is you can set the parameters of like whether you want to keep branding or remove branding. And for us, we basically like had limited branding. It didn't have as much branding as it did before.
Yeah. And like, I think a good option now is having the option to remove it. So by default, it's there, but there is some way of removing it if they really want to. And we were charging quite a lot for ours. We were doing $4.99 plus $2.99 upgrade, I think. And that's very different compared to doing one of the starter introductory lifetime deals, which is usually between like $49 and $79. So there was pros and cons to that as well, because that way we were supporting less customers, but making more revenue. So I don't know, do you want to go into the dev side of lifetime deals and kind of like what the implications can be on the dev side?
Yeah. So obviously, depending on the type of product you have, right? Our product is very resource intensive. So we serve a lot of pages for people. And due to that, it didn't seem feasible for us to run a lifetime deal that was going to be lower cost and higher customers, because we do have a margin per customer that we serve. So basically, there's a cost of goods for every customer, right? So calculating that out, it didn't seem feasible for us to run a lifetime deal with someone like AppSumo, where we could get like tens of thousands of customers, but each of those customers we would only get paid like, let's say $20 to $30, right? We would end up losing money in the long term. It would have been good for maybe exposure, but we just felt that our product couldn't handle it at the time, or our servers would not be able to handle it very well, and then there would be dev issues around that. So having sort of this plan where we charged a higher price and then we got lesser customers, we ended up getting probably around the same amount of money as if we had done a lifetime deal with like AppSumo or someone, but we are now serving a lot lower amount of customers.
Yeah, and I think if you're considering doing a lifetime deal, there's a few things you need to consider. So it's like, do I have ongoing costs to support those? Like Kevin was saying, do you have, is it based off traffic? And if you get large increases of traffic, are you getting paid more money for that, or is it capped, or is it unlimited? Because server costs definitely come in. Are you sending emails? So we send emails for all of our users, and that costs us money too. So that's a variable cost. So if someone just pays once and then they send out, 20,000 emails every single month for the next 3 years, we're going to lose money on that deal. So think about also what your variable and fixed costs are when you go to do your lifetime deal, and factor that in. Because, some really successful lifetime deals, ones that necessarily don't have a lot of variable cost. And so a lifetime deal is actually a really good way to distribute your product to a huge amount of people quickly, and it's not going to cost you too much apart from maybe support. But if you're, a tool that has a lot of variable costs, like you're sending emails, there's a lot of server load, there's a lot of variables in the cost for you to maintain that customer, then maybe a lifetime deal, you need to either remove those features or think about a pricing that's going to accommodate for that.
It's kind of like a good example would be like when people do the WordPress plugins, like where the software itself is hosted by the company you're selling it to. It doesn't have that variable cost that a SaaS might have. So those are prime like lifetime deal products. Those are products that you can do lifetime deals and make a good profit in. Whereas with SaaS, it does become a burden at the end. So it's really whether in my opinion, I think it's better if you're doing a SaaS type business. The money that you earn kind of evens out at the end. So it's basically like you're getting that money up front, but then you're losing it over time, essentially.
Yeah.
So think about it. If you need that money quicker, you say you need some development that you need that money for, then, it might be worth it.
Okay. Nice. So that was another strategy we used. We'll probably look at wrapping this up now and then maybe going into some more middle and higher or middle or later strategies that we used into another episode so that you can kind of consume these, batch by batch. And this is kind of like the beginning, how we sort of started the marketing, and then we'll go into our next phase in a later episode. Is there anything else you wanted to cover on kind of like that initial startup marketing phase that we went through?
No, I think that's a good sort of overview of how a product can get started. I mean, there's other places you can put your company to. Like, I would suggest also a Hacker News and Indie Hackers and Reddit.
Yep.
So just look into, just other places you can promote your product.
Yeah, I think with those kind of community-based forums or sites, I think also you want to come off not as too self-promotional, because we tried a lot of stuff on Reddit and our posts got banned a lot of the time because they came across as too self-promotional. So again, thinking about how you can provide value, whether that's giving out beta accounts, whether it's asking for feedback, whether it's giving something in exchange for getting that awareness, I think is key as well. Because we've definitely made some mistakes of being too self-promotional on Reddit and just having our posts removed.
Cool. Awesome, man. All right. Talk to you guys later.
And if you want to listen to more episodes, make sure to subscribe. We're going to be going through a ton more marketing strategies about how to start companies, how to grow them. We're also going to go not just into our personal stories about how we're growing our own products and how we got to where we are now, but we're also going to be getting guests on and talking about their growth and how they started their companies. So there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff coming. So make sure you subscribe, and we'll listen to you. We'll run into you on the next episode. Bye.
If you like the show, remember to share it with friends and coworkers. You can also check us out and share past episodes at blitzgrowth.com. Hit subscribe and leave a review letting us know how this podcast has personally helped you and your business. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover, make sure to send us an email via blitzgrowth.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on our next episode.